My parents called a family meeting on a Saturday afternoon to vote on whether my $112,000 business reserve should be handed to my older brother for his once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. That opportunity was a seafood restaurant he wanted to open with a woman he had known for 8 months after leaving his wife and 2 little girls in a rental apartment with a broken heater. I was 32 years old, single and 2 weeks away from opening the pediatric therapy clinic I had built from scratch. That money was not spare cash. It was payroll, insurance, equipment deposits, and the cushion that was supposed to keep my doors open while I served children whose parents could not always pay on time. But my mother looked me in the face and said, "Your brother has a family legacy to restore. You can wait." My father nodded like a judge delivering a sentence. My aunt raised her hand, my uncle raised his, my mother raised hers. Then my father looked at me and said, "The vote is final." I sat there at my parents' dining table, watching my family decide my future belonged to my brother. I did not throw my glass. I did not beg them to see me as a person. I just folded my hands over the folder in my lap and said, "All right, I'll release the money on one condition." My brother smirked before I even finished the sentence. Then I said the condition, and the dining room became so quiet I could hear the ice maker drop cubes in the kitchen. Because what they had forgotten, while they were busy calling me selfish, was that I had already bought the building my father's company, my mother's boutique, and my brother's imaginary restaurant all depended on. My name is Claire Whitmore. I'm a licensed occupational therapist in Charlotte, North Carolina. For most of my life, my family described me as the steady one, which sounds like a compliment until you realize it means they expect you to carry everything without asking who is carrying you. My brother Grant was the visionary. He never finished college, never held a job longer than a year, and somehow every failure became proof that he was too brilliant for ordinary life. When Grant got evicted from his first apartment, my parents said landlords were predatory. When he wrecked my mother's SUV, they said creative people were distracted. When he cheated on his wife, Melissa, and moved in with a woman named Sienna who ran a lifestyle page about luxury discipline, my mother said Grant was finally choosing a woman who understood his potential. Melissa, the woman who had packed his lunch for 6 years and raised their daughters while he searched for himself, apparently did not count. My father owned a small commercial cleaning supply company called Whitmore Janitorial. It operated out of a faded brick building on Hawthorne Avenue, the same building where my mother ran her appointment-only boutique in the front corner, and where Grant had been promised space for whatever dream he was chasing that month. My father talked about that building like it was a family monument. He did not own it. He leased it from an old landlord named Mr. Carver, who had been trying to sell for years. My parents always assumed no one outside the family knew the building's value. They also assumed I was too cautious, too practical, too service-minded to make a bold move. That was their first mistake. 2 years before that family meeting, Mr. Carver's daughter called me. She had remembered me from when I used to help my father with invoices after school. She told me her dad was ready to sell the Hawthorne building quietly, no broker, no sign out front, because he did not want my father causing drama before a contract was signed. "Your parents have had chances to buy it," she told me. "Your dad keeps saying he's waiting on financing. My father is tired." I had been looking for a building for my clinic. I needed accessible parking, wide hallways, enough space for therapy rooms, and a location near working families. The Hawthorne building was old, but solid. It had 3 retail bays, a back warehouse, and a second floor that had once been used for offices. It was perfect. I hired my own attorney. I hired an inspector. I got financing through a local credit union. I formed a simple LLC called Sparrow Health Properties because I wanted the clinic separated from my personal name and my family's chaos. I gave my parents 30 days notice after closing, in writing, that the building had a new owner and that existing tenants would be offered updated leases. My father did not read the letter carefully. He saw an LLC name, decided Mr. Carver had sold to some faceless investor, and ranted for 3 days about greedy companies destroying family businesses. I sat across from him at Sunday dinner while he complained about Sparrow Health Properties, like it was a villain from a cartoon. I kept my mouth shut. My attorney had advised me not to discuss ownership until the new leases were due, because my father had a habit of using guilt as a negotiating tactic. For the next year, my father paid rent to the property management company I hired. My mother paid almost nothing for her boutique because my father covered her portion through the company. Grant used the back storage room for free, filling it with restaurant equipment he bought at auctions and never cleaned. I let all of it continue while I planned my clinic build-out on the second floor. I was not hiding to be cruel. I was building something stable before my family could tear it apart. The $112,000 came from 5 years of saving, weekend contract therapy visits, and a small inheritance from my grandmother on my mother's side. My grandmother, Louise, was the only person in my family who ever saw me clearly. Before she died, she told me, "Claire, do not let them call your discipline selfishness. People who spend everything resent people who save anything." I kept that sentence on a sticky note inside my planner. That money sat in a business reserve account under my clinic's name. My parents could not access it. Grant could not touch it. Nobody had authority except me and my clinic's accountant. But my mother knew the money existed because I had made the mistake of telling her, months earlier, that I finally had enough cushion to open safely. She smiled then, sweet and soft, and said, "That's wonderful, baby." I should have known she was calculating. The family meeting happened at my parents' house in Myers Park, where the lawn was always trimmed and the inside always felt like a museum nobody could breathe in. My mother, Evelyn, had set out lemon bars and sweet tea like we were discussing a bridal shower, instead of the attempted hijacking of my business. Grant arrived late, wearing a navy blazer with no socks and sunglasses tucked into his shirt collar. Sienna came with him, her hair perfectly curled, recording little clips of my mother's foyer for her followers. She called my parents' house old money energy, which would have been funny if my parents were not 2 late mortgage payments away from disaster. My father, Richard, sat at the head of the table. He had a yellow legal pad in front of him, which meant he wanted the performance of order. My Aunt Paula and Uncle Ray were there too, because my parents liked an audience when they planned to shame me. I looked around and asked, "Where's Melissa?" Grant rolled his eyes. "Why would my ex be here? She's still your wife," I said. "And she's raising your children." Sienna made a little sympathetic face. "We're not centering old pain today." I looked at her for a second longer than was polite. "Are we centering unpaid child support instead?" My mother inhaled sharply. "Claire, we are not starting with ugliness." "No," my father said, tapping his pen against the legal pad. "We are starting with family priorities." That was when I knew exactly where the meeting was going. My father explained that Grant had been presented with a rare opportunity to lease the largest bay in the Hawthorne building and open a coastal seafood concept called Tide and Table. He said Grant had secured branding, concept direction, and community buzz. What Grant had not secured was funding, a business license, vendor credit, insurance, a chef, a working kitchen plan, or the discipline to show up anywhere before noon. Still, my mother smiled like he had already won a James Beard Award. "Your brother needs $112,000 to move quickly," my father said. "Equipment, design, initial staff, and a launch campaign. If we wait, someone else will take the space." I stared at him. "The space in the Hawthorne building?" "Yes," he said. "The largest bay. It's wasted right now. It's currently used for your inventory overflow." "Temporarily," he said. "The new owners are open to a restaurant concept." I almost laughed. The new owner was sitting 3 chairs away from him with a folder in her lap. My mother reached across the table and touched my hand. "Claire, honey, we know you have that reserve for your clinic." I pulled my hand back slowly. "That reserve is not personal savings, it belongs to the business." "Your business," Grant said. "You're acting like you're not in charge of it." "I am in charge of it. That's why I'm not handing its operating funds to you." His face hardened. "You always do this." "Do what?" "Hide behind rules," he said. "You make everything cold. Numbers, documents, policies. Family is supposed to move from the heart." That was rich, coming from a man whose heart apparently had no room for his 2 daughters unless they improved his image. My father turned the legal pad toward me. He had written all our names in a column. Beside everyone except me, he had placed a check mark. "We took an informal vote before you arrived," he said. Everyone agrees this is the best use of family resources. I looked down at the paper. You voted on money none of you own. My mother's smile disappeared. Claire, do not be difficult. Difficult is asking me to risk payroll for a restaurant run by a man who cannot pay his own car insurance. Grant slammed his palm on the table hard enough to rattle the glasses. I'm tired of you talking down to me. And I'm tired of you calling accountability disrespect. Aunt Paula cleared her throat. Baby, sometimes the person who has more gives more. That's how families survive. No, I said. That's how families drain one person until she has nothing left. My father stood. He had always used height as a weapon. When we were kids, it worked. At 32, it just made him look tired. You were raised better than this, he said. Your mother and I poured into you. Private school, therapy programs, college visits. And now, the first time your brother needs a bridge, you build a wall. I felt the old guilt press against my ribs. It knew exactly where to go because my parents had installed it there. But then I thought about my clinic. I thought about the sensory gym equipment waiting to be delivered. I thought about the families on my wait list. I thought about Melissa texting me photos of my nieces doing homework at a kitchen table with space heaters humming behind them, and I felt the guilt turn into something cleaner. No, I said. You don't get to call my foundation his bridge. Sienna leaned forward, her bracelets chiming. Claire, can I say something woman to woman? No, she blinked. Excuse me? You can say something when you've known my family longer than my clinic's lease application has been pending. Grant shot up from his chair, but my father raised a hand. Enough, Dad said. This is not a debate anymore. Your mother, your aunt, your uncle, your brother, and I agree. You are releasing that money. We will structure it as a family investment, and when Grant's restaurant succeeds, you will be repaid. With interest, Grant added, as if he had ever paid interest on anything in his life. I opened the folder in my lap just enough to feel the top page under my fingers. I had not planned to reveal everything that day. My attorney, Nadine Porter, had warned me to wait until the lease deadlines passed, but my family had just done something useful. They had shown me, in front of witnesses, that they were willing to coerce me out of my clinic money for Grant's benefit. My father mistaken my silence for surrender. Claire, he said, softening his voice now, do the right thing. I looked at my mother. Her eyes were wet, but not with sadness, with pressure. She knew tears worked on me. Then I looked at Grant. He was already smiling. Sienna had her phone face down beside her plate, but the screen was still lit. I could see she had been texting someone, probably a contractor, a designer, or one of the followers she planned to impress with our new restaurant journey. I took a breath. All right, I said. I'll release the money on one condition. My mother pressed her hands together. Thank you, Lord. Grant grinned. See? That wasn't so hard. What condition? My father asked. I pulled a one-page agreement from my folder and placed it in the center of the table. You all sign this first. Grant leaned over it. What is it? Acknowledgement of no family ownership interest, I said. It states that if I provide any funds to Grant, that payment is a one-time private gift, not an investment, not a loan, not an admission that family members have rights to my business, my clinic, my accounts, or any property I own directly or indirectly. It also states that nobody at this table will interfere with my commercial leases, my clinic opening, or my property management decisions. My father frowned. Property management decisions? I held his stare. Yes. He picked up the paper, scanning it too fast. This is ridiculous. Nobody is trying to interfere with your clinic. You are literally asking me to drain its reserve. My mother reached for the paper. Why would you bring legal documents to a family conversation? Because family conversations in this house usually end with me paying for things I never agreed to. Grant laughed. Fine. I'll sign your little paper. Then you transfer the money. No, I said. Everyone signs. You, Mom, Dad, Aunt Paula, Uncle Ray. Since everyone voted, everyone can acknowledge that my assets are mine. Uncle Ray shifted in his chair. I don't like signing things I haven't had a lawyer look at. Smart, I said. You should keep that instinct. My father's eyes narrowed. He finally sensed that the ground under him was not where he thought it was. What property are you talking about, Claire? I closed the folder and rested both hands on top of it. The Hawthorne building. My mother blinked. What about it? I own it. Nobody moved. Grant laughed first, but it came out wrong. No, you don't. Yes, I said. Sparrow Health Properties owns it. I own Sparrow Health Properties. My father's face drained so quickly I almost felt sorry for him. My mother whispered, Richard? He did not answer her. Grant looked between us. Dad, what is she talking about? I turned to my brother. I'm talking about the building you plan to use for Tide and Table, the building where Dad's company is behind on rent. The building where Mom's boutique has been operating without a signed lease for 7 months. The building whose largest bay you promised to Sienna's designer without speaking to the owner. Sienna grabbed her phone. My father pointed at me. You bought our building behind our backs? No, Dad. I bought a building from a man who wanted to sell it. You were offered first. You kept delaying because you thought Mr. Carver would wait forever. That building is part of this family, my mother said, voice shaking. That building belonged to Mr. Carver. Now it belongs to my company. Grant's chair scraped back. You sneaky little... Careful, I said. Because as of this morning, your equipment is being stored on my property without a storage agreement. His mouth stayed open, but no words came out. My father tried to recover. This changes nothing. We can challenge that sale. We had a verbal understanding with Carver. You had a lease, I said. And you broke it 3 times. You missed rent in February, April, and May. I have the notices. I also have emails from my property manager offering a payment plan, which you ignored because you thought the owner was some corporation you could bully later. My mother sat down hard. Aunt Paula suddenly became fascinated with her lemon bar. I slid the agreement closer to the middle of the table. You wanted a vote, I said. Here is mine. I will not give Grant my clinic reserve. I will not fund Tide and Table. I will not let my parents use my building as a stage for another one of Grant's fantasies. But I am willing to offer something. My father looked suspicious. What? I'll give Whitmore Janitorial a 90-day rent extension, forgive the late fees, and offer Mom a real lease at below-market rent for 1 year. In exchange, Grant clears his equipment out of the back bay by Friday, and all of you sign that nobody has any ownership claim or decision-making authority over my company or building. Grant exploded. You're choosing a building over your own brother? No, I said. I'm choosing reality over your performance. Sienna stood. Grant, we should leave. This energy is abusive. I looked at her. Take the shrimp steamer with you. It's leaking rust onto my floor. She froze. That was the first time I saw Grant truly understand. Not just that I owned the building, that I had been inside it, that I had seen the mess, that I had photos, records, invoices, access logs, and the kind of paper trail he had never respected because he had always been rescued before consequences arrived. My father picked up the agreement again, but this time he read slower. This says we cannot contact your tenants. Correct. This says we cannot represent ourselves as agents of the owner. Correct. This says Grant cannot occupy, renovate, sublease, market, or store property on the premises without written approval from Sparrow Health Properties. Also correct. Grant's face turned red. Dad, don't sign that. My father glared at him. You be quiet. That was new. For the first time in my life, my father looked at Grant not as a misunderstood genius, but as a liability with a blazer and no plan. My mother began to cry. Claire, why would you humiliate us like this? I almost laughed, but I did not. Mom, humiliation is announcing to relatives that you voted to take my money before asking me. Humiliation is telling your daughter her work matters less than her brother's image. I am not humiliating you. I am refusing to keep financing the lie. Aunt Paula pushed back from the table. I'm not signing anything. This is between y'all. Then you should not have voted on my bank account, I said. She picked up her purse and left without another word. Uncle Ray followed her. That left my parents, Grant, Sienna, and me. My father sat down slowly. He looked older than he had 10 minutes earlier. What happens if I don't sign? He asked. I did not enjoy what I said next. I need you to know that. Revenge stories make this part sound sweet, but when it is your own parents, it tastes like metal. If you don't sign, the standard notices go out Monday. Whitmore Janitorial has 30 days to cure the unpaid rent or vacate. Mom's Boutique receives notice to formalize a lease or leave. Grant's equipment will be considered abandoned property if it remains after the deadline. The back bay goes to the tenant who has already applied for it. Grant's head snapped up. What tenant? A physical therapy group that wants to share referral traffic with my clinic. You leased my restaurant space? It was never your restaurant space. Sienna whispered. Grant, you told me your family owned that building. I looked at her. He tells people a lot of things. Grant turned on me, desperation replacing arrogance. Claire, come on. You know I was close this time. You are always close, I said. Close to launching, close to paying people back, close to changing. Meanwhile, Melissa is working double shifts. Your daughters need winter coats, and you're planning a restaurant with a woman who hashtags discipline while you dodge child support. His face twisted. Don't bring my kids into this. I'm the one paying for their after-school care. The room stopped again. My mother looked at me. What? I swallowed. That was the part I had not meant to say. Melissa didn't ask me to tell you. But yes, I've been helping. Quietly. Because while you all were discussing Grant's brand, his daughters needed groceries. My mother covered her mouth. My father looked at Grant with something close to disgust. Grant pointed at me. You had no right. No right to make sure your children had food? Sienna grabbed her bag. I can't be involved in this family drama. Grant turned to her. Baby, wait. But she was already walking toward the front door, phone in hand, probably preparing to rebrand the whole disaster as a lesson about protecting her peace. After she left, Grant seemed smaller. Without an audience, his confidence leaked out of him. My father signed first. He did it with a shaking hand and a clenched jaw, like each letter cost him pride. My mother signed next, crying silently. Grant refused until my father said, Sign it, son. Grant stared at him. You're taking her side? My father's voice was flat. I'm trying to keep the company alive. That was the closest thing to accountability I had ever heard from him. Grant signed. I took the paper, slid it back into my folder, and stood. Thank you, I said. My attorney will send copies Monday. My mother reached for me. Claire, wait. We're still family. I looked at her hand, then at her face. I know, I said. That's why this took me so long. For the next week, my phone became a museum of panic. Grant texted apologies at midnight, then insults at breakfast, then business proposals by lunch. My mother sent Bible verses about forgiveness. My father left one voicemail saying I had embarrassed him in front of his siblings, then another asking whether the rent extension included utilities. I answered only through email. That part mattered. No more hallway conversations. No more, just between us. No more agreements that changed depending on who cried the loudest. Everything went through my attorney or the property manager. On Monday morning, Grant arrived at the Hawthorne building with a rented truck and two friends who looked like they had been promised cash he did not have. I watched from the second-floor office where my clinic signs were still wrapped in plastic. He carried out the rusty shrimp steamer, 3 boxes of chipped plates, a fryer with no safety certification, and a neon sign that said Tide and Table in blue script. He looked up once and saw me through the window. I did not wave. 2 days later, Melissa called me. I braced myself, worried Grant had twisted the story. Instead, she said, he sent child support. I sat down. He what? Not all of it, she said, but more than usual. Your dad called him, I think. I don't know what happened at that meeting, Claire, but thank you. I closed my eyes. That was the first moment I felt the revenge turn into something better than payback. My clinic opened 3 weeks later. The first morning, I stood in the sensory room surrounded by swings, mats, weighted blankets, therapy balls, picture cards, and tiny chairs in bright colors. The sunlight came through the old warehouse windows in gold rectangles. Downstairs, my father's company had a new payment plan. My mother had signed a real lease and, for the first time in her life, was paying rent from her boutique account instead of hiding behind my father's books. The back bay went to the physical therapy group. They paid on time. Grant did not open a restaurant. He got a job managing inventory for a food distributor, which was the first honest work I had seen him do in years. He did not thank me. I did not need him to. Sienna posted a video about outgrowing people with scarcity mindsets. I wished her well from the privacy of my office and blocked her. My parents did not come to my clinic opening. At first, that hurt. Then the first family arrived, a little boy named Mason who covered his ears in the lobby until I knelt down and showed him the quiet room. His mother cried when he finally stepped inside. By noon, I was too busy to miss people who only noticed me when they needed something. A month later, my mother came by the building without warning. The old Claire would have met her downstairs immediately, nervous and eager to smooth things over. The new Claire let the receptionist tell her I was with a client. When I finished, I found my mother waiting outside my office, holding a small paper bag. "I brought lemon bars," she said. I looked at the bag, then at her. "Did you make an appointment?" Her lips tightened. For a second, I saw the old reflex in her, outrage that her daughter had boundaries. But then she looked around my clinic. She saw the children's drawings taped to the wall, the schedule full of names, the parents in the waiting area, the staff moving with purpose. For once, she did not say I was being dramatic. "No," she said quietly. "I didn't." I opened my calendar. "I have 15 minutes. We sat in my office. She placed the lemon bars on my desk like an offering. "I was wrong," she said. I waited. She twisted her wedding ring. "About the vote, about Grant, about what you owed us." Those words should have healed something instantly. They did not. Real damage does not disappear because someone finally names it. But it was a start. "I appreciate you saying that," I replied. She looked disappointed, like she wanted me to fall into her arms. I did not. Love without boundaries had nearly cost me my future. She left after 12 minutes. I kept one lemon bar and gave the rest to the staff. People think the most satisfying part was watching my brother's restaurant fantasy collapse, or seeing my father sign a paper admitting he had no power over what I built. I won't pretend those moments did not matter. They did. After years of being treated like the family bank with a heartbeat, watching them realize I had keys they never knew about felt like breathing after being underwater. But the real victory was quieter. It was the first payroll clearing without fear. It was Melissa sending me a picture of my nieces in new coats. It was my father paying rent on time because a lease required him to, not because I begged him to respect me. It was my mother knocking before entering my office. It was Grant learning that a dream without responsibility is just a bill someone else gets handed. And it was me. Standing alone in the hallway of a building everyone assumed I was too cautious to buy. Listening to children laugh downstairs in a clinic my family tried to sacrifice before it even opened. My parents voted to give my future away. They just forgot I had already stopped putting my future on their table. Protecting what you have built does not mean your heart has become hard. Sometimes love needs a clear boundary so it can stop being used as a doorway for harm. Claire's strength was not in punishing her family, but in choosing stability, honesty, and care for the people who truly needed her. A peaceful future often begins with one brave, steady no.